At San Diego, receiver Keenan Allen said that Richard Sherman really isn't a shutdown corner. This after Phillip Rivers threw for 3 touchdowns while Sherman was on the field. Well, after the game, it was reported that Sherman didn't want to speak to the media, but Sherman says that's not exactly true.
It's really funny, you know, especially when you got little guys like the Chargers guys talking about they exposed something. They had 60 and 50 yards, you know. I mean, Gates, you know, Hall of Famer, had a fantastic game, and Phillip had a great game, and, you know, the rest of the guys were there. But, you know, you see stuff like that, and it just makes you laugh. I was literally standing in my locker. Earl was being interviewed. When you come off the field in a 120-degree game and the locker room is about 90, you're probably not going to stand there for an extra hour to wait for everybody to get done doing interviews so you can go out. You know, I'm tired and hot. I'm trying to get cool. So I sat there, though. I was available.
So Richard said he was available. No one talked to him. Stephen A., what do you make of his comments?
Well, I don't know Richard Sherman to be a liar. You know, if he says that he was available and nobody talked to him, he's under no obligation to sit around and wave his hand and say, hey, everybody, I'm here. Want to talk to me? So I understand that. I did see that there was a reporter that came outside while he was signing autographs in the hallway and approached him, and they say Richard Sherman didn't recognize them, so he said he's not talking. But to me, if you said you're not talking, I mean, I know plenty of athletes that don't recognize every reporter that comes up to them. You don't say that you're not talking because you didn't know that they were a reporter. They usually introduce themselves as a reporter. So if you said you wasn't talking, then you weren't talking. But as it pertains to the locker room, the impression was that he was unavailable for comment and what have you. And based on his description of it, it doesn't sound like that was the case. If he was near the locker and they were talking to Earl Thomas and nobody came up to him, he's under no obligation to wait around for the reporters to talk to him. So I don't know what to make of it. I think in this particular instance, considering how loquacious he is, he deserves the benefit of the doubt because it's hard to imagine that he didn't want to talk. Okay? So because of it, I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt in this situation, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
It's harder to imagine that the pack of reporters who Richard said were around Earl Thomas in the adjoining locker would ignore Richard Sherman sitting even briefly in his locker. Because you tell me, as a reporter covering that game, who would be the single most important player in that locker room?
I would be looking for Richard Sherman.
You'd be looking for him. And if you glanced sideways and you were in the scrum around Earl Thomas, what would you do?
I would have walked right over.
You're out, man. Earl, thank you very much.
Yeah, good to see you,
Goodbye. Yeah, have a nice flight, right? But look, in this case, let's put all this in perspective. I feel like Richard Sherman should be honored about the reaction to this. He should be flattered by it, that the little Chargers are making such a big deal out of the 3 catches he gave up.
He appeared flattered.
Huh?
He got a big fat smile on his face the whole time.
He should be, seriously, because you've pointed this out, but he's going to have to keep it in perspective. If in the season opener, the bad man that is Aaron Rodgers opts not to throw a single ball in your direction, not a single ball, and you are on every other commercial I see on TV, so you have become the guy for this NFL season as far as commercial making to my eye. It's just like every time I look up, he's in another commercial, including yours, speaking to you down in his stomach.
Oberto.
Right? Oberto.
Beef jerky.
Beef jerky, yes, we got that. So given that perspective, yeah, it's pretty big news when 3 balls get caught. 3 little balls, you know, as he said, 60-some yards by, you know, Keenan Allen, and what was it, or is it 60 for Royal and 50 for Keenan Allen? I can't remember. But it's not much. It's not many yards. He didn't get beaten deep. There are no explosive plays, as he said. But they looked explosive because Aaron Rodgers didn't pull off one. So he should be honored about it to the point that he should just shrug it off and say, yeah, no big deal, and go on to the next one. And was his pride hurt a little bit after the game just because they lost? It probably was. You know, it's been a while since they've had to sit through something like that. So you made a strong case the other day. No matter what, you need to face the music after a loss.
And I stand by that. But at the same time, I can't knock him for something he's categorically denying he did. Now, if he tried to excuse it, that would be different. No, as much as your behind talks, you need to make sure you talk in a loss, especially considering how much you talk after you win. But what he's saying is that it wasn't true. I was available. Nobody came up to me and talked to me. Now, there's plenty of reporters in that locker room that are around to refute it. I'd like to see what they have to say about that, because I know this much. If I was covering the Seattle Seahawks, whether it's as a beat writer or as a columnist, and you know I've been both, and Richard Sherman said that he was available and nobody came up to him, and I was in that locker room and no, that wasn't true, I'd be on national television today. That's a lie. That's a lie. We absolutely did try to talk to him. We absolutely went up to him and tried to get a quote from him. He absolutely said he wasn't talking. He absolutely was not made available. I would sing like a bird, because you're not lying on me like that. Because to me, if you're a reporter in Seattle, hell, in San Diego,
anywhere,
right?
Anywhere.
And you're inside that locker room, and Richard Sherman is accurate in saying that you did not come up to him. If I'm a sports editor, that's come.
Thank you. That's what I was just going to say.
Let's sit down. Let's sit down and talk. Is this true? Was Richard Sherman in that locker room next to Earl Thomas? Did you see that? Yes, sir. You did not go up to him? Because let me tell you something right now. There'd be a backup beat writer taking his place, at least for the moment. Then listen, you're not doing your job. What in God's name would make you think that you don't? You need to pass up on hearing what Richard Sherman has to say after a loss. Now, I'm questioning your news judgment. So to me, I find that hard to believe, just like you do.
Yeah.
But Richard Sherman is on record saying,
okay,
I was available.
So we do agree. Someone was really wrong here.
Yes.
Either a whole bunch of reporters were really remiss, or Richard Sherman was wrong to leave.
Richard Sherman,
without speaking.
That's what he said.
You're saying you don't believe he was sitting, or you have a hard time believing he was next to Earl Thomas, and the reporters saw him.
If he waited, I don't know. He said he was briefly there, and it was 90 degrees in the locker room, and I've been in that locker room many times, and it could be 90 degrees in that locker room because it's pretty ancient. But the point is, how did he just go grab his stuff and walk away, or did he actually sit down for 5 minutes in the locker waiting for somebody to come up?
Well, does that matter though? Because you're saying
doesn't matter.
You see him walk up. You see Richard Sherman come. You're done.
How many scrums have you been in where it was like mob mentality to get a place around Richard Sherman? In most locker rooms, usually the scrum builds before Richard comes back from the shower
because they want to talk to him.
Sure.
Well, we'll find out. I'm sure someone will talk about it now that we've mentioned it.
Somebody ain't telling the truth.
Already comparing himself to Pro Bowl